Hi there, my name is Victoria Bowler, and today we are talking about planning an active elementary music curriculum. Now, of course, there's never a bad time to think carefully and creatively about your music curriculum, but summer is a time that many of us naturally want to plan for the upcoming year, and in that sense, this summer is no different than any other. But there's another component of this summer's planning. At the time of this video, schools and community have reshaped to maintain student safety in the midst of COVID-19. Our curricula, including the one in the planning binder, have shifted to accommodate this new mode of instruction. Now, as schools have wrapped up across the country, educators are in a position to plan for the upcoming school year and to consider how they can facilitate even deeper learning, regardless of how instruction takes place. Because no matter what it looks like, the key to deep musical learning is active musical experiences. So here are some ways to frame your curriculum around active music making. My friend Anne Molesky has also done a lot of really great work on this topic, so I will link her podcast in the description below. In passive learning, the student doesn't really do anything other than take in information from the teacher. Here are some important characteristics of passive learning. In passive learning, the student learns by taking in information from the teacher. The student's job is essentially to be a sponge and just receive knowledge. Communication is one way. Learning happens as the teacher transmits information to the student. So for example, in a lecture-style portion of a music class, the teacher might talk about a specific composer. The teacher there is the source of the information. The communication goes from the teacher to the student, not the student to the teacher, not the student to another student, or the student to the larger community. The student's role is to listen and follow directions. Passive learning environments have the potential to be quite calm and orderly. And that's because a successful student in passive learning knows how to follow orders quietly and without question. This kind of education has one central focus: the teacher. In passive learning, the teacher has the most important role in the classroom. So at the end of a passive learning experience, the result is that students know about things. Let's contrast that with active learning. When we compare passive learning with active learning, we see that the curriculum centers around students, not the teacher. Here are a few differences in the student experience when learning is active. In active musical learning, the student learns by constructing their own knowledge through intentional action. This is the active part of active learning. Students learn by doing things, not having the teacher talk about things. There is communication on many levels. So while there might be periods of direct instruction, the communication doesn't stop there. Students communicate back to the teacher. They communicate with each other in partners or through small group work or in a whole class sharing. Students might also communicate with the larger community through something like an informants. Students spend time communicating with themselves through self-reflection. Rather than transmitting knowledge, the teacher's job in an active learning environment is to craft intentional learning experiences. And in these experiences, students discover musical concepts on their own. The teacher's knowledge and skill level with the subject is still crucial. It's imperative that the teacher has a deep conceptual understanding of the subject matter so that she can guide the learning activities. This kind of education has one central focus as well, but that is the student. Learning revolves around the student and how he or she is working through these musical concepts. The result of this type of model is that students learn about music at a deep level because concepts have been made relevant. Musical concepts are actualized through intentional experiences, and then students end up with a holistic contextual understanding of a musical concept, complete with what they know about it and what they can do with that knowledge. I think a lot about active learning as I build the curriculum in the planning binder. This is a monthly subscription that is flexible and creative so that it serves your students well. It follows the philosophy of active student-centered music making, and you can read more about it in the description below. So to recap, in passive musical learning, knowledge comes from the teacher. In active musical learning, students construct knowledge through action. When we consider how to craft active learning environments, we often look to musical skills, and this is a great place to start. Musical skills are things like reading or writing or singing or playing or moving or listening. But there are ways to perform musical skills passively and ways to perform them more actively. So for example, in both a passive and active music room, students might sing songs. But in a passive classroom, that might look like students sitting and singing while looking at lyrics of the song on the board. It might also look like singing in a choir and following the directors conducting for the correct dynamic level in the last 8 measures of the song. And there's nothing wrong with these experiences. It's just that with a few little tweaks, these experiences can be much more active and student-centered. So, to take the last example, in an active musical classroom, students might sing a song and look at the lyrics on the board, but then identify the highest word in the 4th line of the song. Or in a choir, students might sing and vote on the most impactful dynamic level to use in the last 8 measures. So here are some other examples of musical skills that can be altered from passive to active learning. When students play instruments, they might learn a pattern by rote, and they might play it on barred instruments. Or, using a pattern learned by rote, they might make a variation by keeping the rhythm the same, but changing the melody. If students are moving, they might copy the teacher's dance motions or copy the dance motions on a video. Or, students might be invited to use as many levels as they need to move to the melodic contour of the song. When they're reading, students might read patterns from the board that were written by the teacher, or they might memorize names of the lines and spaces on the staff. Or they could take turns writing patterns on the board, and the class reads the student patterns. Or they might figure out a mystery song on the staff by interhearing the notation. When they're writing, they might copy notation on a worksheet. Or students write down original music so that they can remember it. They might invent graphic notation for a specific rhythmic or melodic element. When students listen, they might sit and listen to a piece of classical music. Or they could sit and listen to a piece of classical music, and when they know the form, they work with a partner to show it through movement. So these ideas might give a starting place for some active musical experiences. You can also find some fresh and engaging examples every month inside the Planning Binder. Across the nation and across the world, really, music teachers at the time of this video are in need of reinventing their teaching in innovative ways. And as we move forward with constructing an active music curriculum, there are a few questions we can ask to self-check our work. When we design learning activities, we can ask, what is my ultimate goal as a teacher? And does this serve my ultimate goal? What is the student doing in the activity? And what is the role of the teacher in this activity? Now, there will certainly be periods of time where we use direct instruction in our classroom. The purpose of active learning is not to replace the teacher. The purpose is to reconsider the role of the teacher in learning and the ownership of the student in learning. We want classrooms where the teacher equips students with the tools they need to succeed and crafts the learning structure in which the interaction takes place and then gets out of the way. If you have any questions or comments about constructing your own active curriculum, I would love to hear from you. You can drop a comment below, or you can shoot me an email, victoria@victoriabowler.com. Thanks so much.